Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. I'm down here at Cockle Bay on Friday, but it's not just any Friday. For the Greek Orthodox and the Eastern Orthodox churches, today is Good Friday, a day of lament, a day which is solemn, and a day which represents, I guess, the lowest point that humans can get in the history of time. It's the day that Jesus was set upon the cross and he gave up his life and died, and of course on the third day was resurrected. So I'll try and get through today. I'm on a very, very strict fast, which I've been doing maybe for the last decade now. So from 4 o'clock on Wednesday, I've only been drinking water, and I will just drink water up until Resurrection Sunday, where we will hopefully have some margherita, some eggs, and a light meal. And then on Sunday we will have an Easter lunch at my Auntie Frida's place, where over 60 people are invited, and it will be a well-deserved family get-together, a get-together that we haven't really experienced for a number of years, given that we've had COVID for a couple of years and that my auntie now lives most of her time overseas. So looking forward to that event, and looking forward to going to church tonight. I was at church last night for the Dodeka Vagelia, and it was beautiful to see a packed church, because we always worry that this time of year at least people flock to the church. The Greek Orthodox come out in droves, and it's a time of celebration and lament. Two things happening at the same time, as the Greeks call it, charmolipi. So a time of sorrow mixed with a time of immense joy. Anyway, what I'd like to do this morning is go through yet another book summary like I do every morning. Today I'll be doing a book entitled The Power of Regret by an awesome author, a renowned author named Daniel H. Pink. He's written a few beauties, so and today is no different. Today's book is one of those books where we can leverage and use the emotion of regret to our advantage, and we can pick 2 or 3 points from this author that will hopefully be useful for not only today but for other days in our lives when we do experience regret and other mixed emotions. So the author kicks off his book with a quote where he says, "When feeling is for thinking and thinking is for doing, then regret is for making us a little bit better." And it's important to understand that we are all work in progress. Throughout our lives, we are learning, we are making mistakes, we are having little successes, we are growing and developing, and it's important to acknowledge that we are on a path of fine-tuning, of improvement, and to see life as a journey of being polished, the rough diamond being polished into a magnificent shining example, to shine just like the lights do on this most beautiful city on this Friday morning, this overcast Friday morning, where it has been raining a little bit. We'll see how the day turns out, but it is quite mild and it is a beautiful, most beautiful time of year. So with regard to regret, the author kicks off with an example of a person who was very, very successful from a business perspective, but one day, by mistake, was confronted by an image, by an obituary of his life, even though he was still alive. According to this author here, what happened many, many years ago, this person, his brother passed away, and yet the newspapers made a mistake and thought that he'd passed away and wrote an obituary in the newspapers, and it was a negative story about this person's life. So what we're saying here is that the person that we're talking about is Alfred Nobel. And most of us will remember the name Nobel from the Nobel Peace Prize, a very, very prestigious prize that is offered to scientists, to people in various fields of endeavour. I'll just get under the cover here because it's starting to rain. So the Nobel Peace Prize is offered, and is a very prestigious prize offered to people who are leaders in their fields. But Alfred Nobel became famous in his time because he invented dynamite. He invented or perfected the use of gunpowder to be used in bombs, to be used in firearms, and to be used in other ways which were seen by some people of his time as being negative. So what we're saying here is what happened is that the newspapers got onto this and called him the Prince of Death, the Prince of Darkness, because they associated him with the marketing and the export of gunpowder that caused death to people. By the same token, it also created economic growth for countries because they use dynamite in mining and other things. But you're always going to have people, you're always going to have agendas that are going to play the negative story because people thrive on negativity, sadly. That's why the news is mainly negative, because it captures people's attention and gets people excited. So let's move on and just find out a little bit more about what this author writes about in terms of regret. And he makes a profound point here, something which is really powerful, something that I hadn't really considered in the past from this sort of perspective. That's one of the beauties of reading lots and lots of books, is that even though a lot of people talk about similar sort of topics, what they do is they come at it from a different perspective, and they allow us to see things in ways that we'd never considered before. So Daniel Pink says, and rightly says, and I like the way he puts this, he says that there are basically two types of regret that one can experience, and your response and your actions will depend on how you see the regret and how you receive it and how you use it. He says that there is unproductive and productive regret. There is one which paralyzes and one that catalyzes. There's one that makes us freeze, and there's one that spurs us to action. And it's bad, according to this author, it's really, really bad to allow one's regrets to become and to remain unproductive. So the call to action from this author is to see how we can use our regrets to spur us to action, to make us better people, rather than to cause us to go back into our shell and not to be able to experience life in the way that we were intended to experience life, and to not be the person that we once were, because we've gone back into our shell. So the author then breaks it out and talks about unproductive regret that leads to paralysis, and it leads to rumination. It leads to us telling ourselves stories over and over again and beating ourselves up and making us doubt ourselves, making us doubt our thought processes, making us doubt our purpose in life. And then he goes on to talk about the productive doubt, or the productive regret, which spurs us into powerful action. And the way we push ourselves, the way we grow, the way we develop, is by accepting our regrets, owning our regrets, and using them as a springboard. I love this, using this as a springboard, as a stepping stone for change and for improvement. And the way we do that, the way we make regrets productive as opposed to unproductive, is that we need to analyze them, we need to accept them, we need to take ownership of them, and we need to learn from them. Because learning from your regrets is a choice. You can either have painful experiences in your life and just leave it at that, or you can ask yourself the important question: what can I learn from this? How can I use this for my advantage? And how can I create a lesson from this that not only I learn from it, but I can live, learn and pass it on to others through my example and through my learning from this particular point, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And the beautiful message from Daniel Pink is that it is never ever too late to learn from your regrets and to flip your regrets and make them productive rather than leaving them unproductive. So it's a choice, and it's never too late to change and to improve ourselves and to put ourselves on a better orbit in life. You can always change. You can change in a heartbeat, and you can change in a big way. You don't need to wait. You don't need to live with the shame of regret. You can always just, as I said before, own it and say, I made a mistake, and to grow from it. That's why the Greek Orthodox Church has as one of its great sacraments confession, where you can go to your spiritual father and confess any regrets that you have, and to accept it and to be absolved of those regrets, and to not have to worry and deal with it ever again, by metania, by a change of heart. The author then goes on to say something else which is quite interesting and quite special. And he says that we need to think of regret as only one stock in our portfolio of emotions, our emotional portfolio, and to accept it as being a presence in our life. You know, we can't disown regret. It is something that's here to stay, and it's something that's part of our lives. We are wired for regret because we're human, because we've got a rational soul where we know the difference between right and wrong. We've been created in God's image. We've been created in God's charismata, as people say, in the positive things that God stands for. Then when we do sin, or when we do break away our relationships from God, or our relationship from God, then it's sound and it's proper for us to feel regret. So we need to accept it as being part of our lives, but to accept it as being only one of many aspects of our life, and a tool that we can use to help us become better people. It's a tool that can help us achieve balance. Now, there is a place for regret in our lives, as negative emotions, according to this author, can help us gain balance to the more positive feelings that we have. Realistically speaking, being too positive and being too bold can also bring pain and suffering. So we do need a negative sort of spin to that to bring us balance, so that we're not overly positive and we're not overly bold in what we do, because we could end up doing things that cause us pain and further regret later on. So what the author here is saying is that we need to keep our positivity, our lives in check, and to restrain ourselves occasionally from being overly excited and excitable, because when we're excited, when we feel very, very positive, what it does is it makes us careless, according to this author. Extreme positivity can make us careless and can lead to addiction, can lead to other very, very serious problems in one's life. And for that reason, we need a feedback loop. We need to be able to feel regret, to feel pain, to feel shame, especially in a world like today where there is no shame. People perform shameless or shameful tasks and define them as being prideful. We have things now defined as being, pride events, when in many ways, when one looks at it deeply from a family, from a religious, from a community perspective, we've taken shame and turned it into pride. And we've gotten to a point now where we no longer know what pride is, because the language has been twisted, has been taken and redefined in ways which don't necessarily align to where it once was and where it once properly was. So the bottom line is that growth comes from negative experiences as well as positive experiences, and we need to experience both positive and negative growth opportunities, so that we can figure out and learn what does work and what doesn't work. And we need bad judgment in order to gain good judgment, and we need an inventory of skills. We need an inventory of patterns that we can compare and contrast to, and we need lots and lots of different lessons in our life that we can store into our inventory of solutions, to be able to call on those things at a later time in life. Another interesting point that the author makes here, and a lot of people don't quite understand this, I hear a lot of people these days saying, well, I don't really care, I don't give a damn, don't give a shit. But what the author here says is that we need to be careful, because when you don't care, what does that mean? When you don't care about what people think or what people say or what people do, what happens is that leads to a condition called carelessness. And when we're careless, then what happens is that we can get ourselves into trouble, because you no longer restrain yourself, you no longer think about the consequences, you no longer think of the first, second and third level consequences, and all of those things can lead you to bad choices, bad judgment, and living in a world where you don't really consider the impact of your decisions on your future life, as well as the life of those around you, including your loved ones and people you may not even know about. But we need to be careful and not to be careless. We need to be caring. We need to be kind in order to live a good quality life, and to forget about, the selfishness that abounds, and to be considerate of the things that we think, the things that we say, the things that we do, and try and understand and visualize the potential impact it may have on others around us. So we need regret in our life. We need to think about things in order to grow and develop, is the key message that this author tells us. The other point that the author makes, which is a good point, is that there are three ways to handle regret. So the author gives us a couple of solutions to consider. So with the things that we do in our lives, the things that we regret having done, the author says that there are three options that you may wish to consider. You can firstly undo it, you can secondly at least it, or thirdly you can analyse and strategize it and leverage it and use it for other opportunities that may come your way. So what does the author mean when he says you can undo it? What he's saying here, and this is quite profound and quite powerful, he's saying that most mistakes that we make in our life, most decisions, most choices that we make are reversible. If you buy a car and you can't afford to maintain it, you can always sell it and minimise your losses. What we're saying here is that everything in our lives can be undone to a certain point. There are certain things, of course, that you can't undo. Once you get labelled, once you get defined by your family, your friends, your community, your society, then sometimes the stigma of that definition may stay with you forever. And that's why parents spend a lot of time protecting their children, protecting their families, so that they don't fall into the trap of being defined by society and stigmatised, and that stigma sticking with them for the rest of their lives. The author also goes on to say that the second option that we have about regrets is that we can at least it, which means that we can think about what has happened and we can change our perspective. When you look back over your life, sometimes the worst days of your life end up becoming the best days of your life, because you change your perspective, you change the way you see things, you change the way you feel about things, and you need to ask yourself a simple question. And regardless of what happens, you need to ask yourself, what good came out of this? What's good about this? How can I use this to improve my life and to better my station in life, you need to ask yourself good quality questions, is what the author is suggesting. And that's an opportunity for everybody, regardless of what age you are, to ask yourself an empowering question. What good came out of it? Because every experience that we have in our lives is there to be a positive lesson for us, as long as we embrace it, we see it, and we use it, and we leverage it in that particular way. We're all going to have a different past. We're all going to live a different present. I am here, you are somewhere else, and even if you were here, joined at the hips, you would be focusing and obsessing about something completely different to what I am currently doing. So each person's life, each experience is a personal experience. You don't have too many communal experiences because we all view things, we all assess things, we all see things differently, regardless of however hard you try to make everybody see the world in the same particular way. It's not the case. You can't impose the pride movement on me, for example. You can't impose other values on me which are contrary to the values that I hold dear to my heart. And the last point that the author talks about is that you can analyse and strategize. You can learn very, very important, profound lessons from your regrets, from the things that you regret. And you can create rules of thumb based on what has happened, so you can think about it in future. So the bottom line from this author is that everybody experiences regret, and by looking back can help us more than just looking forward. Sometimes the things that we've done that have been shameful, the things that we've done that have not contributed to the definition of who we are or who we want to be, can impact us into our futures. Because, as many authors say, you can't outperform your self-image. If you have a self-image that is negative, then you're going to be constantly returning to that self-image. Your thermostat will be regulated in a way to make sure that you will always return to who you see yourself as. So the author then calls us to action and says that we need to live a more deliberate life, where we do things in a more deliberate fashion, and to be a life learner, to look at life as an opportunity to grow and develop, to live, to act, to behave just a little outside your comfort zone, and in essence to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because growth only comes through being slightly discomforted. So that you do things, you expand your horizons, you change your perspective, and you learn what is possible, and you continue to add to those experiences, because at the end of the day, learning is simply the art of attaching the unknown to the known. And what you know, you can add to it. What you learn, you can add to it, so we can continue to grow and develop throughout our lives. So thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Jim's 5am Club. We just did the book The Power of Regret by Daniel H. Pink on the Greek Orthodox Good Friday. It's rained throughout the morning, it's now sunny, the breeze has picked up, so we've had a number of seasons all come together in this beautiful Sydney autumn day, this solemn autumn day. So take care, wishing you all the best. May we all continue to live, learn and pass it on, and to welcome our faith, welcome Jesus into our lives, and to become one where possible with God at every opportunity, to serve God with all our heart, mind and soul, and to serve each other and to love each other as we love ourselves. Yassas, take care, and wishing you all the best. And the bottom line from this book is to learn the power of regret and to use it in a productive way to live a better life and to become the shining example for others to follow. Yassas, and bye for now.